The governor confirming that coronavirus has arrived here in Manhattan, and predictably, people we spoke to about it are not thrilled.
Well, that's right, Joe and Sade, to close or not to close school for 1 million public school students in New York City. Well, we can now answer that question for you. Just a short while ago, Mayor de Blasio announced school is closed. Do not go to school tomorrow, and at least for the next few months, the next few weeks, in fact, for the next month.
2020 was a difficult year for everybody, but one group in particular who felt the effects of the pandemic are school students.
I did not talk to any of my friends in 2020 after into quarantine, probably until we graduated 8th grade, which was June.
Well, I was in the Hamptons, so we were in like a pretty isolated place at the time, and so I wasn't really like in contact with a bunch of people. So I think that it was like kind of like upsetting because I wasn't able to spend time with like any of my friends or anything like that. But I also knew it was like necessary to keep people safe. So yeah.
The pandemic has also shown itself to have effects on the mental health of school students. According to 5 studies conducted on children and 16 studies conducted on college students, both groups reported feeling more anxious, depressed, and fatigued after the pandemic.
I think it was also like negative for a lot of people, especially for me, because I need like be able to have a lot of social like attraction like with people, and I need to like stay in contact with people, or else I kind of just like, I don't know, like that's what I love having. So yeah, it was different.
For me, it was generally like the anxiety aspect, and just like the loneliness and isolation would definitely increase, and depression and other things.
During media coverage of the 2020 quarantine, not a lot of student voices were heard from, causing there to be quite a lot of misinformation and lack of understanding of the pandemic from a student perspective.
They understood that our life is so online that those little aspects in person are just really important, and then when we went fully online, we just saw all these other people who weren't in the same situations as we were, fitter and healthier. We saw like more perfect versions of what we wanted to be. And I feel like adults don't really understand that because they didn't grow up in a time where technology is used constantly. And just being in person is so important because you actually have physical connection and you see others, not just through a screen. And we already use our screen so much without it. And just being transitioned to fully online learning, being on the screen every second of every day is just so mentally taxing, and I don't think adults will ever understand.
Not to mention the challenges that can arise when you consider that most students have to transition to high school during a pandemic.
Because like I never had like a normal entrance into high school, but it was definitely like difficult because I hadn't like met the majority of the people myself, like any other cohort, because the grade was like divided. So yeah, like once 10th grade started, then I like met a bunch of new people. It was like interesting.
As things slowly start to return back to normal, there comes a new wave of challenges as schools have to adjust with the sudden shift to online learning.
This year's return was unlike any other. For the first time in a year and a half, nearly all New York City school students were expected to attend in person.
I think that we'll always be dependent on our screens even more than we were, because now meetings, instead of being in person with masks, they're always on Zoom. Especially one-on-one sometimes. Instead of meeting after school, you'll meet them on Zoom. And it's just, it'll always be more dependent on screens, always, after this especially.